Something unusual is unfolding across the United States, and it's unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. Americans aren't just relocating from one state to another anymore, they're leaving the country entirely. From the bright lights of New York to the sprawling streets of Los Angeles, from sunny Miami to rainy Seattle, people are quietly packing up their lives. But this time, it's not for a fresh start in another corner of the US. It's for a completely different continent. This isn't a loud or flashy movement. It's more of a slow, steady drift. A quiet migration driven by rising living costs, deep political divides, burnout, and a growing sense that the stability people once counted on is slipping away. Call it a reset, call it an escape, or maybe it's simply people waking up to a different kind of future. Whatever you call it, the numbers speak for themselves. In 2025, more Americans are choosing to move abroad than ever before. And here's the twist. The cities seeing the steepest population losses aren't just fading factory towns or sleepy rural communities. They're some of America's most iconic urban centers. The very places that once symbolized the American dream, now watching that dream board a flight to somewhere cheaper, quieter, and more promising. This is Discover the Cities, and tonight we're diving into the 10 U.S. cities being hit hardest by this overseas migration and the surprising international destinations where Americans are choosing to rebuild their lives. Number 10. New York City. Once the pulsing heart of American ambition, New York City is now witnessing an exodus unlike any other major metro in the country. Since 2020, more than 500,000 people have left the city behind, and this time, they're not all heading to warmer states like Florida. More and more are booking one-way tickets across the Atlantic, swapping the buzz of Manhattan for the soft light of Lisbon, the charm of Madrid, or the sophistication of London. For decades, NYC symbolized the height of achievement. That old saying, "If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere," was practically law. But in 2025, making it in New York doesn't feel like winning anymore. It feels like barely surviving. With rent prices soaring, taxes that never let up, and a cost of living that weighs down even six-figure professionals, the city that never sleeps has become the city that never stops draining your wallet or your energy. To put it in perspective, renting a modest one-bedroom in Manhattan can easily top $4,000 a month. In contrast, that same budget overseas might get you a seaside apartment, a walkable neighborhood, and most importantly, peace. In places like Portugal or Spain, American expats are thriving. They're living well on less, enjoying slower days, and rediscovering a word that's all but disappeared from New York life: balance. And once remote work became the norm, the decision to leave got a whole lot easier. When offices closed, the world opened up. Laptops became passports. People realized they didn't need to stay trapped in a city that took so much and gave back so little. Now, former Wall Street pros, creatives, educators, they're scattered across Europe, still earning US. They wake up to the sound of waves instead of sirens, stroll cobblestone plazas instead of dodging traffic tickets. New York will always be legendary, but legends fade when everyday life starts to feel like a battle. For many, the dream has changed. It's no longer about owning a brownstone in Brooklyn, it's about building a better life somewhere quieter, where living feels like living again. Number 9. Los Angeles, California. The palm trees still line the streets, the sun still paints the sky gold, but the magic of Los Angeles is starting to flicker. Once the ultimate symbol of freedom, creativity, and limitless opportunity, LA has morphed into something else entirely, a beautiful pressure cooker, where stress, cost, and burnout are baked into daily life. Between 2020 and 2025, over 300,000 people packed up and left LA County. While some relocated to neighboring states like Nevada or Arizona, an unexpected number took a much bigger leap, trading freeway gridlock for a fresh start in places like Costa Rica, Thailand, or Spain's laid-back Canary Islands. So what's driving this shift? In a word, cost. The price tag on paradise has reached breaking point. Housing is outrageously expensive, taxes feel never-ending, and traffic, it's not just frustrating, it's soul-crushing. Even those pulling in decent salaries find themselves stuck in an exhausting loop of non-stop work just to keep up with gas, groceries, and rent. At some point, the math stopped adding up. In cities like Valencia or Medellin, you can enjoy a vibrant, comfortable lifestyle at a fraction of what it costs to survive in Los Angeles. And for many, whether they're young creatives, remote workers, or retirees, that shift in value equals something priceless: freedom. And then there's the climate. California's worsening wildfires, rolling droughts, and choking air have made daily life not just difficult, but dangerous. The idyllic, golden haze California dream now feels more like a cautionary tale. Even the ultra-wealthy are looking for escape routes, quietly buying second homes overseas, where clean air, reliable utilities, and a slower pace of life are no longer luxuries, but necessities. Los Angeles used to be the end goal, the final stop on the map where dreamers came to chase fame, fortune, and reinvention. But now, the dreamers are quietly leaving, and the dream itself is dimming. As the sun dips behind the Pacific horizon, more and more Angelenos are realizing something powerful. You don't have to stay and suffer to find meaning. Sometimes the life you're searching for, the peace, the balance, the joy, isn't in California at all. It's somewhere far beyond America's borders. If you're drawn to stories that uncover what's really shifting beneath the surface of the American dream, hit subscribe. This is Discover the Cities, and we're just getting started. Number 8. San Francisco, California. Few places reflect the unraveling of American hope quite like San Francisco. A city once celebrated for its visionary spirit, the birthplace of big ideas and bold movements, now finds itself tangled in the very systems it helped create. Today, San Francisco stands as one of the most expensive and divided cities on Earth. Median rent still floats around the $4,000 mark, and the average home now costs over $1.3 million. Walk any block and you'll see the contrast, gleaming towers next to tents, innovation overshadowed by inequality. The once electric buzz of the tech world has dulled. What used to feel like the edge of the future now feels like burnout in slow motion. Layoffs, long hours, and a growing sense that the dream might have passed its peak. Since 2020, nearly 70,000 people have said goodbye to the Bay Area, and many more are preparing to do the same. But this isn't just a move to Austin or Denver. Increasingly, it's a leap across borders. Portugal, Singapore, Canada, places where safety, sanity, and affordability still feel possible. Cities where the cost of living doesn't require sacrificing your health, your time, or your sense of purpose. And here's the twist. The very tools that Silicon Valley engineered, remote work, global connectivity, flexible platforms, have now become the escape hatch, the golden key out of the system. Tech professionals who once squeezed into overpriced studios, juggling million-dollar mortgages and 14-hour workdays, are now working the same jobs from homes by the sea, across oceans, in countries where life costs less and gives more. And they're not coming back. San Francisco's decline isn't just financial, it's existential. It's the painful recognition that innovation, without inclusion, leaves people behind. That brilliance alone doesn't build a livable city, community does. From afar, the skyline still sparkles, but up close, the shine masks a deepening void. For every startup founder who once landed with stars in their eyes, there's now someone quietly leaving, weighed down by disappointment. The dream of changing the world has been replaced by a simpler, quieter goal, to live in one that finally feels fair. Number 7. Miami, Florida. For years, Miami was the finish line, the dream destination where sun-seekers, innovators, and immigrants alike came to start fresh, soak in the endless summer, and chase freedom under swaying palms. But in 2025, the tide is beginning to turn. The city that once shimmered with promise is now pushing people out, not pulling them in. What began as a post-pandemic boom has transformed into a full-blown financial hangover. Home insurance premiums have doubled, construction never seems to stop, and housing prices, they're spinning wildly out of reach. Even lifelong Floridians are starting to feel like strangers in their own neighborhoods. Places that once felt like paradise now come with a suffocating price tag. And the threat isn't just economic, it's environmental. Rising seas, flooding streets, and intensifying hurricanes have turned the Miami lifestyle into a high-stakes gamble. The risk is so real that even the wealthy are quietly hedging their bets, buying backup homes in Portugal, Panama, and the Caribbean, seeking climate stability abroad just in case the next storm is the one that tips everything over. Owning a mansion in Miami used to scream success. Today, it often means sleepless nights and a mountain of rising costs. The younger professionals who rushed in during the crypto and remote work wave, many of them are now leading the exodus, heading to places where the weather still feels like home, but their money stretches twice as far. From Lisbon to San Jose, former Miami residents are discovering a new kind of freedom, one where the air is just as humid, but the rent is half, and the pace of life invites breath, not burnout. Sure, Miami still dazzles after dark, the skyline pulses with neon, the ocean breeze still dances through the palms, but behind that glow, something's shifted. Paradise is starting to lose its shine, and the question lingering in the thick Florida air isn't just rhetorical, it's urgent. What happens when even the people who built paradise can no longer afford to stay? Number 6. Chicago, Illinois. Once the iron heart of the Midwest, Chicago was more than just a city. It was a symbol of strength, culture, and community. Its towering skyline told the story of American ambition, while its streets echoed with jazz, hard work, and hometown pride. But now that pulse is growing faint. Since 2020, over 200,000 people have quietly left Chicago behind. Some moved to nearby states, chasing lower taxes and calmer streets. But increasingly, others are going much farther. To Mexico, Costa Rica, even parts of Eastern Europe, in search of something Chicago no longer consistently offers: peace, stability, and the space to breathe. For retirees, the decision often comes down to numbers. A modest pension that barely stretches in Illinois can fund a relaxed, even elevated lifestyle in Portugal or the Balkans. For digital nomads and remote professionals, it's the same story. The cost of living in Chicago keeps climbing, but the opportunities haven't kept pace. What once felt like a city of promise now feels like a burden, weighed down by taxes, inflation, and a constant question mark around safety. But the hardest part? It's not logistical, it's emotional. Chicago isn't just where people lived, it's where they felt. The sting of that icy winter wind, the roar from Wrigley on a summer afternoon, the way Lake Michigan catches the sunrise and turns it into something magic. You don't just leave that behind easily. And yet, nostalgia doesn't pay the bills, sentiment doesn't soften the fear of walking home after dark, and no amount of pride can stop a heating bill from doubling. The winters feel longer now, the joy feels a little more fragile. The pride, still there, but it's fighting to stay afloat. More and more, those who leave aren't running from something. They're reaching for a life that still feels fair, a life where safety isn't a luxury, where time moves a little slower, where you don't have to sacrifice well-being just to keep up. Chicago will always stand as a symbol of resilience, but even resilience has its breaking point. And for thousands of former residents, that point has quietly come and gone. Number 5, Seattle, Washington. Seattle used to feel like a glimpse of what was next, a city built on innovation, framed by natural beauty, and pulsing with possibility. With snow-dusted mountains behind it and the sparkling Puget Sound at its feet, it seemed like the perfect marriage of nature and progress. But in 2025, the storm clouds aren't in the sky, they're in the numbers. The very tech boom that turned Seattle into a symbol of the future has now priced out much of its population. Average rent has climbed past $2,600 a month. Groceries are nearly 25% more expensive than the national average. Even those with high-paying tech salaries are starting to quietly ask themselves, how long can I actually afford to stay? And many are deciding they can't. They're not just heading to Portland or Boise anymore. Increasingly, Seattle residents are relocating overseas to places like Canada, Japan, and Scandinavia, drawn by universal healthcare, public safety, and a way of life that feels more human. Because for a growing number of people, this isn't only about cost of living, it's about quality of life. The constant drizzle outside now mirrors something internal: burnout, that creeping sense that you're working non-stop just to stand still. Seattle's spirit of progress has started to feel heavy, burdened by dense regulation, mounting expenses, and the overwhelming feeling that life here has become transactional. Work, pay, repeat. And yet the city remains stunning. The views are cinematic, the culture is rich, the potential is still there, but it's become too expensive to access. Now, families that once strolled the waterfront dreaming about tomorrow are chasing those same dreams elsewhere. They're choosing countries where the pressure is lighter and the system feels a bit more forgiving. And in a world where digital tools allow us to work from anywhere, Seattle's newest export might just be its most valuable: its people. The creatives, the coders, the visionaries, slipping away in search of a slower pace and a life that makes room to breathe. Number 4, Austin, Texas. There was a time when Austin felt like it couldn't lose a beacon of creativity and tech, where music met innovation beneath wide Texas skies. For a while, it was the place to be. A city buzzing with promise, pulsing with energy, and drawing in dreamers from every corner of the country. But every surge has its ceiling, and for Austin, that moment has come, much sooner than most expected. Between 2020 and 2024, the city experienced explosive growth, nearly a 30% jump in population. Home values skyrocketed by over 70%, traffic became unbearable, and rental prices doubled. That offbeat charm, the Keep Austin Weird vibe that once defined the city, began to disappear under layers of congestion and cost. What was once an affordable haven for artists, entrepreneurs, and remote workers is now a city struggling under the weight of its own popularity. By 2025, Austin no longer holds its economic edge, and the same Californians who once saw it as an escape from their home state's chaos, many are leaving again. Only this time, their sights are set far beyond American borders. More and more former Austinites are building new lives in Mexico City, Medellin, and Lisbon, cities that capture the same creative spark but without the financial strain. Abroad, they're reconnecting with what originally drew them to Austin: community, inspiration, and the freedom to live fully. The irony cuts deep. A place celebrated for freedom has become too expensive to feel free in. Yes, Austin still beats with live music and startup energy. Its skyline is growing, and its culture is alive, but something has shifted. The pace feels frantic, the soul feels stretched. What once felt like an open invitation now feels like a warning, a glimpse at what happens when growth outruns the very values that made it great. And maybe that's Austin's new role in 2025. Not as a destination, but as a launchpad, for people looking to rediscover that same sense of possibility somewhere else. Number 3. Honolulu, Hawaii. Living in paradise used to feel like a blessing. But in Honolulu, that paradise now comes with a price tag that many can no longer carry. The ocean still sparkles, and the palm trees still sway, but for countless longtime residents, Hawaii has become a dream that's slipping out of reach. The numbers paint a harsh reality. The average home now costs well over $1 million, and everyday essentials, groceries, gas, utilities run nearly twice the cost of what people pay on the mainland. For decades, Hawaii stood for balance between land and spirit, nature and culture, family and community. But in 2025, that equilibrium is breaking down. The buildings grow taller, the resorts get flashier, but the fabric of local life is wearing thin. What's unfolding is one of the most significant waves of outward migration Hawaii has seen in years. Thousands are choosing to rebuild their lives in places like Japan, New Zealand, and the Philippines, countries that feel culturally connected but come with a far lower cost of living. For many native Hawaiians, this isn't about chasing opportunity, it's about survival. They're being displaced from the very land their ancestors called home. And it's not because they want to leave, it's because they feel they have no other choice. Tourism now dictates nearly every aspect of daily life. Foreign investors scoop up beachfront properties as vacation homes, often sitting vacant, while local families juggle multiple jobs just to stay afloat. The soul of Hawaii, its deep connection to land, culture, and ohana, is being traded, slowly, for short-term profits and luxury developments. Honolulu still dazzles at night. Its skyline reflects off the Pacific like a postcard. But look closer, and you'll see something else: sorrow. Each plane that lifts off the tarmac isn't just carrying travelers, it's carrying the legacy of a people who've been forced to carry their culture with them, far from where it was born. Paradise isn't gone, it's just being redefined, scattered across the Pacific, one family at a time. Number 2. San Diego, California. At first glance, San Diego seems flawless. Endless sun, coastal charm, and a lifestyle that feels pulled straight from a travel brochure. But beneath the glossy exterior, the economic foundation is quietly fracturing. Home prices in the city remain among the steepest in the country, yet wages have stayed largely stagnant. The very people who give San Diego its heartbeat, educators, nurses, service workers, and military families, are being squeezed out with each new rent hike. The middle class that once shaped San Diego's identity is slowly vanishing, replaced by empty luxury units and a flood of short-term rentals that cater to visitors, not residents. By 2025, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Many lifelong San Diegans aren't just heading to more affordable parts of California, they're leaving the country altogether. Unexpected destinations like Costa Rica, Ecuador, and Panama are becoming new homes for families searching for what San Diego used to offer: warmth, safety, and a livable cost of life. In these places, the cost of a single apartment back in California can buy a modest home by the beach, erase debt, and maybe most importantly, return time to the people who've been living paycheck to paycheck. No more endless rental hikes, no more juggling bills and watching savings evaporate. Just a chance to live life on human terms again. San Diego may still sparkle on the surface, but for many, the glow now comes with a sense of weariness. It's the tiredness of doing everything right, earning well, working hard, and still falling behind. Even professionals making six-figure incomes are finding themselves living like college students, counting every expense and wondering how much longer they can keep up. Those choosing to leave aren't giving up on the American dream, they're following it, looking for the same things their parents once sought here: stability, connection, and a future that doesn't feel like a financial treadmill. This isn't about escape, it's about reclaiming intention. It's about choosing purpose over pressure. At Discover the Cities, we continue exploring these untold migrations, not because the dream is gone, but because it's moving. Sometimes paradise isn't a place you stay, it's where you finally feel free to live. Number 1. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia, the cradle of American independence, is now watching its own residents seek a different kind of freedom from the city itself. Once a proud emblem of grit, culture, and community spirit, the city of brotherly love is quietly experiencing a population exodus. In 2025, thousands of Philadelphians aren't just heading to neighboring states, they're boarding flights to entirely different continents. From the scenic shores of Portugal to the historic heart of Mexico, many are trading Philly row homes for cobblestone streets and simpler living. For decades, Philadelphia struck a rare balance. It was a big city with small-town heart, affordable, authentic, and full of soul. But that equation is falling apart. Costs are climbing, wages are frozen, and public safety concerns are becoming harder to ignore. Streets that once rang with neighborhood pride now echo with uncertainty. Local businesses are shuttering, crime rates are rising, and families who once saw a future here now struggle to afford basic stability. The housing market paints the picture perfectly. Modest homes once within reach of working families are now outpriced, property taxes are surging, utility bills are spiking, and public services are straining under pressure. For many, the numbers just don't add up anymore. So they're looking beyond the US border for a future that feels possible again. A new chapter of the American dream, one written in new lands, but with the same old hope, a better life, and that's what makes Philadelphia's story so powerful. This is the city that once declared liberty for the world to hear, but now its people are chasing a personal kind of liberation, one that means living without fear, financial strain, or burnout. In places like Lisbon, Oaxaca, or Panama City, many former Philadelphians say they've rediscovered what they didn't even know they were missing: peace, balance, and a sense of community. They're not turning their backs on America. They're embracing what America used to stand for: possibility. Philly still wears its history with pride. Its monuments, its murals, its identity, they all speak of endurance. But underneath that pride is a quiet exhaustion, the fatigue of trying to make it in a place that's no longer fighting for you. The dream that was born here nearly 250 years ago is being rewritten, not in declarations, but in departures. Because today, freedom isn't always about birthplace, it's about where you can afford to live fully. Across the US, the same story is playing out. For every Angelino saying goodbye to gridlock, someone is planting roots in Costa Rica. For every New Yorker waving farewell to rent stress, someone is saying hello to calm streets in Madrid. They aren't rejecting America, they're reframing what it means to be free. In a world where remote work has erased borders, the American dream is becoming a global one, a dream for those bold enough to start again. This is Discover the Cities, where we track the real stories behind the shifting tides of modern migration. If this truth resonates with you, subscribe. Because what's happening now isn't just people moving, it's people redefining what home really means.